She was called a worthless gold digger at her own wedding altar. They laughed as she removed her ring, not knowing she was worth $2.3 billion. 24 hours later, their family empire collapsed. This is the story of how one woman's humiliation became their financial destruction. The morning of what should have been the happiest day of her life, Camila Washington stood before her bedroom mirror, adjusting the delicate lace of her grandmother's vintage wedding dress. At 28, she had built something extraordinary from nothing, yet she chose to keep her achievements hidden from the world. Few people knew that the quiet, humble woman who preferred charity galas to red carpet events was actually the CEO of Washington Tech Solutions, a company valued at $2.3 billion. Camilla had met Michael Sterling 2 years earlier at a fundraiser for underprivileged children in STEM programs. While other wealthy attendees mingled with champagne flutes discussing their latest acquisitions, Michael had found her in the corner, genuinely engaged in conversation with the young scholarship recipients. He seemed different from his family's reputation, more interested in making a difference than making headlines. Their romance bloomed over late-night conversations about changing the world, shared dreams of using privilege for purpose, and Michael's apparent indifference to the wealth and status that consumed his social circle. What Camilla didn't know was that Michael's family had been living a carefully constructed lie for years. Sterling Industries, once a powerhouse in manufacturing, had been hemorrhaging money due to poor investments and an inability to adapt to changing markets. They maintained their lavish lifestyle through credit and borrowed time, desperately seeking a merger or acquisition that could save them from complete financial ruin. The irony was breathtaking. The woman they were about to humiliate held the very key to their salvation. The Sterling estate buzzed with activity as guests arrived for what society papers had dubbed the wedding of the season. Camilla had invited only her closest friends, a small group who knew her heart but remained unaware of her true financial status. She worked under a pseudonym, rarely appeared in business media, and had built her empire so quietly that even those closest to her didn't fully grasp the magnitude of her success. Michael's side of the wedding, however, was packed with high society elite, their conversations peppered with discussions of stock portfolios and summer homes in the Hamptons. As Camilla waited in the bridal suite, her best friend Jasmine helped with final touches. "Are you nervous?" Jasmine asked, noticing the slight tension in Camilla's shoulders. Camilla smiled, though something felt different about Michael lately. He'd seemed distant, stressed about family matters he wouldn't discuss. She attributed it to wedding jitters and the pressure of merging two very different worlds. The ceremony began with all the pomp and circumstance expected of a Sterling family event. Camilla walked down the rose-petal-strewn aisle, her heart racing with anticipation. She noticed the cold stares from some guests, the way conversation stopped as she passed, the phones being discreetly positioned to capture every moment. But she pushed those observations aside, focusing instead on Michael's face at the altar, searching for the warmth and love she had fallen for. Just as the officiant began the opening words, a voice cut through the ceremonial silence like a blade. Catherine Sterling, Michael's mother, rose dramatically from her front row seat, her designer dress rustling with indignation. "Stop this wedding!" she declared, her voice carrying across the stunned gathering. "I cannot and will not allow my son to marry someone so far beneath his station." The collective gasp from the guests was audible, but Catherine wasn't finished. Her voice grew louder, more theatrical, as if she were performing for an audience rather than destroying a young woman's heart. "This person," she said, gesturing toward Camilla with obvious disdain, "is nothing but a gold digger who will destroy our family's reputation and legacy. Michael, you cannot throw your life away on someone so unworthy." The attack came from all sides. Michael's father, Gregory Sterling, stood to support his wife. "Catherine is right. We've tried to be polite, but this opportunist has manipulated our son with her schemes." Michael's sister, Patricia, couldn't resist adding her own cruelty. "Look at that dress," she laughed, her voice carrying across the now silent crowd. "Probably bought at some discount store." This is what passes for bridal fashion in her world. What Patricia didn't know was that Camilla's dress was a 1920s Chanel original, worth more than most people's cars. It had belonged to her grandmother, a woman who had built her own successful business during an era when few women could dream of such independence. The dress represented legacy, strength, and the quiet power of women who changed the world without needing recognition for it. Phone cameras emerged throughout the crowd, capturing every moment of Camilla's humiliation. Guests whispered and pointed, some laughing openly at the spectacle. The hashtags would start trending within hours. Hashtag know your place, hashtag gold digger exposed, hashtag sterling wedding drama. Social media would turn Camilla's most vulnerable moment into entertainment for millions. Through it all, Michael stood frozen at the altar, his face pale with shock but his voice silent. This was the moment that would define not just their relationship but his character. The woman he claimed to love was being publicly eviscerated by his family, and he said nothing. When he finally opened his mouth, it was too little, too late. "Mom, maybe we should—" But his words trailed off weakly, his loyalty clearly divided. Camila felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her, the sting of their laughter, the cruelty of their judgment. But instead of breaking down, something deeper took hold. This was not just about her anymore. This was about every person who had ever been dismissed because of their background, their race, or their perceived worth. With a dignity that silenced even her harshest critics, she slowly removed her engagement ring and placed it gently on the altar. "I thought I was marrying someone who loved me for who I am," she said quietly, her voice carrying despite its softness, "not who I appear to be." The simplicity of her words somehow made them more powerful than any dramatic response could have been. As Camila walked back down that aisle, each step felt like an eternity. The same guests who had watched her approach with excitement now jeered and mocked her retreat. "Gold digger!" someone shouted from the crowd. "Know your place!" called another. The cruelty was breathtaking in its intensity, as if her humiliation had given them permission to reveal their true selves. In the bridal suite, Jasmine found Camila sitting quietly, still in her wedding dress, but with an expression of profound disappointment rather than devastation. 2 years, Jazz," Camila said softly. 2 years I thought he was different. I thought he saw me, really saw me, not just what his family wanted him to see." While Camila processed her heartbreak, her phone rang with an urgent call from her business partner and longtime friend, Marcus Chen. "Camila, I know today is your wedding, but there's something we need to discuss about the Sterling Industries merger. The final papers are scheduled to be signed tomorrow morning. Are you still planning to move forward with the acquisition?" The irony was so profound it was almost surreal. "Cancel everything," Camila said quietly, still wearing her wedding dress, still processing the cruelty she had just endured. "Cancel all of it." What Marcus knew, and what the Sterling family was about to discover in the most devastating way possible, was that Camila Washington wasn't just wealthy, she was their lifeline. Washington Tech Solutions had been in negotiations to acquire Sterling Industries for months, a deal that would have injected $950 million into the failing company and saved thousands of jobs. The merger had been Camilla's idea, a way to surprise Michael after their wedding by revealing how she could help preserve his family's legacy while transforming their business for the modern era. She had fallen in love with Michael away from his family's influence, during quiet moments when he spoke passionately about wanting to make a difference in the world. She had planned to show him that love and business success weren't mutually exclusive, that they could build something beautiful together that honored both their dreams and his family's history. The Sterling family had just destroyed their own salvation with their prejudice and cruelty. The research Camila had done into Sterling Industries painted a picture of a company in free fall. Poor investments in outdated technology, failure to adapt to changing consumer demands, and a management structure more concerned with maintaining appearances than making profits had left them millions in debt. They had been living on credit and borrowed time, their lavish lifestyle a carefully maintained illusion while their business empire crumbled beneath them. Michael had been kept in the dark about his family's financial troubles, just as he had been unaware of Camilla's true identity. His parents had hidden both the depth of their financial crisis and their desperate need for the merger that his bride-to-be was prepared to offer. In their arrogance and prejudice, they had just destroyed the very relationship that could have saved them all. By Monday morning, the financial news was brutal and swift. Washington Tech Solutions withdraws from major merger, read the headlines across business publications. Sterling Industries' stock price plummeted as investors realized their last hope for solvency had vanished. The company that had been valued at hundreds of millions just days earlier was suddenly worth a fraction of that amount. Catherine Sterling's first reaction was disbelief, then desperate damage control. She began making frantic phone calls to intermediaries, business associates, anyone who might have connections to Washington Tech Solutions. Her apologies were transparent and self-serving, focused entirely on salvaging the deal rather than acknowledging the humanity of the woman she had humiliated. "There's been a misunderstanding," she told anyone who would listen. "We need to fix this immediately." Michael's arrival at Camila's corporate headquarters was perhaps the most heartbreaking scene of all. The sleek glass building that housed Washington Tech Solutions was a monument to innovation and forward-thinking business practices. As he sat in the contemporary lobby, surrounded by awards for corporate social responsibility and framed photos of scholarship recipients, the magnitude of what he had lost began to sink in. When Camila finally agreed to see him, she was no longer the vulnerable woman in a wedding dress. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, surrounded by her team, in control of her environment and her destiny. "I don't understand," Michael said, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me who you really were?" Camila's response was measured and calm. "Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I could do for your family's business. I wanted to know that your feelings were genuine, not influenced by what I could offer you financially." She paused, looking at the man she had planned to spend her life with. "I was going to tell you after the wedding. I was going to surprise you with how we could save your family's legacy while building something new together. Your family made that impossible." In the boardroom that afternoon, surrounded by her executive team and financial advisors, Camila made a decision that would reverberate far beyond the Sterling family's personal finances. "We're going to redirect that $950 million, she announced. "We'll create the largest scholarship fund for underprivileged students in STEM fields that this country has ever seen. If the Sterling family taught me anything, it's that some people need to learn that respect isn't about money, it's about recognizing the inherent worth and potential in every human being." The final confrontation between Michael and his family was brutal in its honesty. "You destroyed everything," he told them, his voice shaking with anger and grief. "You destroyed the woman I love, you destroyed our future, and you destroyed our family's business because you couldn't see past your own prejudices and arrogance. She was going to save us, and you drove her away because she didn't look like what you thought she should look like." The collapse of Sterling Industries was swift and thorough. Within 6 months, the company that had been a fixture in American manufacturing for 3 generations filed for bankruptcy. The estate was sold to pay creditors, the family's social standing evaporated, and their legacy became a cautionary tale about the cost of prejudice and the danger of judging people by their appearance rather than their character. Michael, finally finding the courage he had lacked at the altar, made a public statement that was both an apology and a denunciation of his family's values. He cut ties with their toxic worldview, began working with one of Camila's scholarship programs, and dedicated himself to understanding and fighting the very prejudices that had cost him everything he truly valued. The story concluded not with revenge, but with renewal. At the first annual Washington Tech Solutions Scholarship Ceremony, hundreds of young people from diverse backgrounds received funding for their education in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Camila stood at the podium, watching dreams take flight and futures unfold, knowing that something beautiful had emerged from something painful. She had found love again, this time with someone who had known and appreciated her worth from the beginning. Her business partner Marcus had stood by her through the humiliation, the heartbreak, and the healing, proving that real love recognizes value without needing external validation. The Sterling family lost nearly $1 billion in their entire way of life because they confused worth with wealth, character with class, and love with leverage. But Camilla gained something priceless: the unshakable knowledge that she deserved to be loved for exactly who she was, and the power to transform her pain into purpose for others who needed someone to believe in their potential. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you their true character before it's too late. In trying to humiliate one woman, the Sterling family revealed their own moral bankruptcy and lost everything that really mattered. Meanwhile, Camilla walked away from their cruelty and into her true power, proving that respect isn't earned through inherited wealth or social status. It's given through recognizing the inherent dignity and unlimited potential in every human being. Her grandmother's wedding dress now hangs in her closet, waiting for the right moment, the right person, and the right love story. One built on truth, respect, and the understanding that real worth can never be measured by anything other than the content of someone's character.